Boy, I beat your ass in Connect.
Nigga, so once we get done, we'll play right now. I can't do both, motherfucker. We sitting here talking.
Boy, I just beat this boy ass.
Place a 28-game losing streak on me.
Boy, I just beat this boy down in some Uno, Connect 4, tic-tac-toe.
If I lose, you take whatever you want off me. How about that?
Ooh, that is a beautiful breakfast. Make sure to subscribe to Point Forward wherever you listen to your podcast and follow us on all social channels at Point Forward. As always, Point Forward is presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with the code Point Forward, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details.
So let's talk about how you finna go on a losing streak, just like these Pistons are going on a losing streak.
Damn! If you bet $100 on the Pistons to lose their first game in the streak and just roll over the winnings to bet on each game, after their 23rd loss, you'd have $114,000.
You could buy half of Detroit. That's a show.
Yes, the Detroit Pistons are the topic of our DraftKings Sportsbook. The hot topics. Who go first, you or me?
You go first. What's so crazy about that? I'm a big Cade Cunningham fan, bruh.
Yeah, he's good.
So, like, when you're sitting there, you're looking at, like, what's going on. I just can't really see how they're losing. I mean, losing 21 games is tough. You ever went through a stretch like that, losing 21 of them things?
Yeah, in Philly, we lost a whole bunch of games.
With Eddie Jordan?
No, it wasn't Eddie Jordan at all. It was, who was our coach? Was it Mo Cheeks?
Oh, y'all did Mo dirty?
We lost to who was it? We beat the Celtics to end the streak. That's all I can remember.
Who was on that team? That was KG?
No, it wasn't KG. Like, they were bad. This is when they were bad. Yeah, this is when they were bad. Game over.
Where you see it at?
Come on.
Me.
Yeah, game over. I told you I was going to beat him. I'm the realest to ever do it. Now go right here so I can go right here. I beat you.
Where?
Yeah, tic-tac-toe.
You got me.
I'm the greatest. I'm the world's greatest.
All right, let's go
I'm the
again.
world's greatest.
You think you are?
So, DraftKings Sportsbook, your official partner of the bettors that you want to be. Bet responsibly. People, it's like just like short sellers. That would be the equivalent, right? This is a financial topic.
I guess if was a fifth, like who would bet? Man, take your $100 and go home, G.
No,
I was just saying you're gonna press it back. No, I did. It's lit, but like shit. Who would have thought?
ET, you lost 26 games in a row?
No, I wasn't on that team. I just got traded at half. I got traded like what? February 3rd?
September.
February 3rd or 4th?
You were part of that though. January 21.
Yeah, I got traded probably 2 weeks after.
So you went 2 weeks without winning?
Maybe.
I did too. We lost 6 in a row, 7 in a row.
Yeah, I feel like we started. While we talking, that 2014 team was a tank team. So we started off. We beat the Chicago Bulls with Derrick Rose. We beat the Heatles.
Michael Carter Williams had a triple-double.
Yeah, and then we beat the Wizards. And those were like 3 of the top teams in the East. And literally, we come to that practice, everybody sat down. So even if we got like, for instance, you go back to January.
Oh, they set y'all down.
They set us down. So we won those 3 games. We go to January, we win the first 4 games of January. And then that's when, obviously trades. And so every time we got momentum, we got sat down, then the trades occurred.
No, that's wild.
I mean, it just is it's the league, right?
No, that is wild.
I mean, you got to try to, you got to win the tank. But you know what's wild? They were doing all that for Brandon Pozinski's backup.
Who is Brandon Pozinski's backup?
Andrew Wiggins.
Oh.
And Jabari Parker.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It was crazy.
So, I think that's not bad. That's actually lit.
It lit. Almost.
Yeah, well, I think they were saying something like they compared them to the 49ers, and I think in like 3 or 4 years or 2 years, I think the 49ers got like more wins, obviously in lesser games played than the Pistons do over that span. And it's like a quarter of the games. I forgot what team it was, but it's either the 49ers or somebody along those lines.
Like the Niners. We going crazy right now.
Yeah, y'all might win it, bro. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey got me 43 points in fantasy. Bro, I was almost out, G. Man, shout out to Christian McCaffrey.
Game over. I'm the world's greatest.
You are the world's greatest.
I'm the world's greatest. We can't play no more, dog. I'm just too good at this.
You think so?
Yeah.
So crazy.
Connect 4.
All right, let's done record. Are we done recording?
I'm so good.
All right, let's lock in. Let's go.
I'm so good.
Nigga, I'm talking to you and playing the game.
All I want for the holidays this year is some NBA action. This week, new customers can score $150 instantly in bonus bets just for betting $5, an instant dub just for you. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code POINTFORWARD. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on basketball. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code POINTFORWARD. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 and older. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See tkng.com/basketball for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
Point forward.
We had some viral moments this summer, it feels like. Unexpectedly, we weren't trying. Shout out to my man, Lil Russell. We spent some time with him. His episode will be dropping. But he spoke to something that kind of resonated with me in terms of not trying to chase the virality. I like that word, virality. But we caught a wave just on our basketball discussion and it being so organic. E.T., you spoke to, buying in and actually losing value, buying into a team and how that can affect your outlook on your profession, on your passion. And that was with the one and only J.J. Redick. And so without further ado, it was our turn to put J.J. on a hot seat.
Point forward.
I want to know your take on how officiating should be represented in the game of basketball. The art of officiating.
Represented.
Like, so in what form, shape, fashion should officiating play in sports, in basketball?
Well, I think there's two things. There's the technical side and the personal side. And on the technical side, I've always said this. NBA players are we're great actors.
Yes.
Not good actors. We are great actors.
I'm passionate.
And so we're all method actors. We get on the court and we're in character. And I think we understand the technical side. So the really smart players exploit certain things. And I think that's been true since the beginning, right? I also think there are certain players, you go all the way back to Wilt Chamberlain, let's say, who some seasons took 17 free throws a game. There are certain players who have a physical advantage, and that could be size, that could be speed, that could be strength, that could be decel, like Luka or like Joel. Plus, they've got the brain. And so they're always going to be at an advantage somehow. And the defense, because they're at a disadvantage, often gets called for fouls because these guys are so smart. So on the technical side, I think it's a really hard thing for referees. I do. I think it's a really hard thing. There are certain calls night to night that I watch, and I'm like, how the F did you miss that? How did you miss that? Mm-hmm. The second part, I think, is the interesting part, which is the personal part. Because I coach young kids who in the middle of a game we're like, the referees are screwing us. Like, we grow up with this mindset that refs are screwing us. Nobody taught them that I know of that. I've never talked about the refs to my son, and he'll come over to me in the middle of the game. The refs I don't like these refs. I'm just like, dude, what? So we grow up with that mindset, we get the league and we're all assholes. And how do you expect the referees to all of the time, 100% of the time, act in an impartial manner?
Because that's
it's impossible.
Because that's what you get paid for.
Yeah, not only that, referees in college, high school, and middle school, they actually suck. So like when you get to like the pros, you should know some shit, right?
Do you guys don't think it's a hard job at the
No, I think it's a hard job.
Very, very, very hard job.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think they run up and down a court at that age is tough. So I can only imagine trying to.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you because you've been so involved and you're currently the interim acting. I don't know the exact title, but the acting president of the NBPA.
Yeah.
So you know all this. We have discussed as players because it was ongoing when I played. I know they're trying now even more with this NBA referee Twitter account, but the idea of transparency, where the refs are somehow held accountable. I feel like the players have consistently voiced that, and I can go back in my career the last 5 or 6 or 7 years. Like every time we met with the referees, every time we met with the PA about these issues, like what I heard in the room every time was all we want is transparency. And sometimes some of that transparency is, why are certain officials refereeing my games? Why are certain officials refereeing this deep in the playoffs?
Tony Brothers.
How are these referees grading out like this? And the players wanted to know that. Now, I don't know that we get that information now. We certainly didn't get that information when I played. And so I think that's, like, we recognize, like, every player impartially will be like, all right, referees are going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes. Basketball's a game of mistakes, right? The transparency piece, I think, is where the frustration lies sometimes with players.
I don't have that answer yet. Emphasis on yet. But we do have an issue where we've had rules changed. Like, they changed rules based on awards, like minimums. You know, it sounds like a marketing deal. You have your minimums, right? We have a minimum games played to get an award because of what? Load management. Because we don't want our star athletes to not play on the road. But at the rate that our star players are being ejected, what was the point of this minimum games things played? At the way that I'm seeing guys be ejected. That's all I'm saying.
No, that's real. I'm shocked that like Joker got ejected like 2 or 3 times already
In Chicago.
Yeah, that's
the
wild.
fans are going berserk.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't mind favoritism in that situation. You know what I mean? Because people are there to see Joker and all those guys play.
Oh, that's a
Only
good
thing
idea.
I have a problem with, when we had those transparency meetings at the beginning of the year, they would always bring up people. They bring up, the respect for the game clause. And you have to ask a question like, okay, so what about Draymond? All right? And then when they talk about fouls, they'll be like, all right, my G, everybody 9 straight, we might get 4 free throws a month. When we see James Harden, he's shooting 25 free throws a night. Now, I played basketball my whole life, but make it make sense, my guy. I'm not going 3 months without touching the line. And, like, when it comes down to transparency, it's one from, like, good players and it's from everybody else and being like, what the fuck are we playing?
Well, I do think historically we haven't had this problem. And I've asked a few refs, Danny Crawford.
Oh, great guy.
I had some really good conversations with him. Being in Chicago in the summers, working out with Tim Grover. And he would always, say to me, MJ wasn't a fan of mine because I didn't call fouls for MJ at the rate that he thought he should get foul calls. But if you go back and you saw The Last Dance, the same energy MJ had for his teammates, he had for the refs. But when you watch a game, the refs are just able to go about their business. I mean, they had Dennis Rodman, for Christ's sake. Like, I feel like Dennis was 10 times worse. And so I feel like it's a part of the culture. I shouldn't say the culture. It's a part of the occupation to be able to handle certain things. Just like you got a kindergarten teacher who's got to deal with some kids who may need to be told something 4 or 5 times. But the kindergarten teacher's being paid $30,000, and so if we want to play that route, we can go to the salaries of some of our referees and see, hey, you should be able to put up with a kid, an adult acting like a kid for 48 minutes.
The other part of this, because I talked about this actually today on the Old Man of the Three Things, where we talked about the physicality and how you can't touch players today. The reality is 1980s, and I just started with 1980 because that's Magic and Larry rookie year. I think that's the start of the modern NBA.
Everyone was a plumber
Mavericks,
before that.
I started 1980.
I'm
Magic,
just messing
Larry,
with you.
Mavs were added in 81, I think. So 23 teams. 1980s, average free throws, 29 free throws a game across the board, meaning every team averaged 29 free throws a game. 1990s, I believe it was 26. 2000s, it was 25. 2010s, it was 23 or 24. 2020s, it's 22.7. So across the board, every single decade, as the rules favor the offense, offensive players are actually getting fouled less, shooting less free throws. And you think about the 90s, when the pace, most teams had 80 to 90 possessions. You know, league leaders would be, you can only track back to 96, 97, but league leaders would be like around 93 to 95 in terms of pace. And now you talk about 104 possessions. The slowest paced teams are 97 or 98 possessions. So we have more possessions, and yet we're shooting more free throws. What I think part of it is star players have the ball in their hands more. They're functioning more as hubs rather than just like, we're going to dump down the ball, we're going to ISO you. So star players are getting fouled more, and everybody else is getting fouled less. I think that's some of it. The other part about just the whole conversation, you have to think that social media at least is a part of this, where we're getting these last 2 minutes report and we're having a discourse around that every single time. And it's a non-nationally televised game and there's a bad call and it gets viral. So I think some of this like frustration that's building is because it's just in front of us all the time now. And the players see that. Players see, you guys know this. Players see everything.
Right.
Players see everything. So I think that's part of it. I do find it interesting, though, that on average, even with the increased pace right now, especially 80s had high pace. We can't exactly, there wasn't tracking error, so we can't exactly, but we can look at field goals and free throws and turnovers and all that and see, all right, they played at a higher pace. But 90s, 2000s, 2010s, like the pace was lower. And yet there's more possessions in a game and we're shooting less free throws per game on average across the board.
Yep. Now, I'm not so much into the foul calls. I'm more so into the officials having a personality more than ever. When have we ever spoken about the officials in the manner that we do now? Like, you'll hear announcers speaking to towards the refs by name.
They be having to work at the game. You walk in, but you here for who? But keep going. It's the truth. That's how popping they are, but keep going. You wondering, here go the answers, but rock.
No, and I'm serious about this. And that's why I say what form are they taking as officials? Are they just regulating the game? Or is there a bigger place for them within the game? That's all I'm trying to figure out. Because, yeah, but if we give them a name, image, and likeness, they're going to want they cut too.
No, I dig you, but at the same time, they did do that. We keep forgetting, they did do that walkout, that silent protest at the bubble. You remember that, right?
Yes, I remember that.
All right, they woke up and did that. Give them some credit.
JJ, do you remember that?
It was on TV.
I think I must have been gone by then. It was
at the bubble.
Because I was only there till about mid-August.
No, they did it early
I left
on.
right after they did it early on?
They did it early. Wait, what hotel were you at?
Oh, I was at the shitty hotel.
Oh, they did it at the big hotel.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Evan, were you on Boston that year?
What for? What was it?
No,
Bubble?
who'd you put? Yeah, the
I was
bubble.
done. So by the time my team didn't make the bubble, and I retired right after that.
Oh, your team didn't make the bubble.
So I would have got traded from Atlanta and Minnesota, and then we didn't make the bubble.
Yeah, like
That's
7
right.
teams,
Yeah.
8 teams didn't go to the bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
8
like the
teams didn't go.
bottoms. Yeah.
So the bottom in the standings got the worst hotel.
It was the main hotel. Whatever, I don't know. I forgot the name of our hotel. But the main hotel is where they had the
protest.
The protest. They had a silent protest. It was, I appreciated the solidarity, the support.
Here for both of you guys. This is maybe just a thought starter here, but I feel like the referees are part of the game in the same way that a broadcast is part of the game, in the same way that every fan that pays a ticket, every fan that watches League Pass, the trainers, players, coaches, front office, sponsors, like the game betters now. The game is so much bigger, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many more players and actors and characters in the game today. And in some ways, and this has been good for players, in some ways we've all been amplified. You can't tell me beyond maybe soccer, NBA players are some of the most popular athletes in the world.
For sure.
Yeah.
You probably have a couple race car drivers, definitely soccer, and, probably some cricket players out there. I don't know. But NBA players are very popular. So it's been good. It's been good. But also everybody else has gotten amplified a little bit. And I think sometimes, like, everybody just kind of trying to find, I think there's a moving part here to this where, like, everybody just kind of try to find their place in this new era of attention and social media and some effort of transparency. I did a bit last year for DraftKings where I made fun of that tweet they had after LeBron got fouled against the Celtics. Where they talked about we're going to have many sleepless nights. I'm like, what the fuck?
I'm like, let it go. It was a game in December.
Yeah, come on, man. Come on.
So we talk about like the new era, the new wave of everything. So in this chapter, your new era of ESPN analysts, new era, new media. We want to go back to like the beginning time and when you set that tone. You were one of the first. You were the first NBA player to have a podcast, and the second NBA player after our good friend Draymond Green to do it during the season. So how'd you get into that? How'd that come about? And was that like a smooth transition from your rap career that you had with Ryan Anderson?
I had retired. I had retired from rap at some point in college. I had a brief return to the game around 2009, 2010. Ryan Anderson made a beat for me, and I wrote a couple verses, and we may have recorded the first verse in his like house or something. I don't know. Anyways,
What was your flow like?
I would say it was like a mixture of Nas, Talib Kweli, and Eminem.
All right, bet. You might as well throw Andre 3 Stack in there too. Fuck it.
No, so anyway, so in the summer of 2015, Woj had signed this deal with Yahoo, and he basically was given his own little vertical platform. It was called The Vertical. And so there was going to be writing. Him and Chris Mannix were going to have their own podcast. So they asked me to write something for them. It was like 8 pre-written things inside the NBA, right? Trade deadline, start of the season training camp, Christmas Day games, whatever. You could pick 8 sort of touch point moments. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of anxiety about it. And I was like, Woj, I'm good. Like, I don't really feel like writing and having like this deadline hanging over me. I'm such a fucking idiot. Had I known that every week you'd had to do a podcast with the deadline hanging over you, I would have signed up for the 8-part writing series. I'm stupid. But anyway, so he came back to me a couple months later and was like, hey, we're all getting our own podcast. You should have your own. And so, I started February of 2016. I was the first active NBA player to do one. I think I was the second athlete ever to have his own podcast. And, it was like a learning curve, like anything else. And I enjoyed doing it, but that first run with Yahoo, I think I did 40 or 41 episodes in a row. And my second son was born. It was a contract year. And I was just like, I can't do this for the rest of the season. So they let me out of the contract, dabbled at the Ringer for a bit, and knew that I was kind of ending my time in the NBA. I knew that going into 2020, 2021, it was likely going to be my last year when I launched the Old Man and the Three. By late fall, I knew it was going to be my last year because I was hurt and I'd missed that time with my kids in the bubble, and I knew they were going to be away from me during that season, with me living in New Orleans and them staying in Brooklyn. So, it was like you guys know this, it's a big commitment, and we're doing 2 a week now. We do one on Monday and one on Thursday. So the podcasting is a lot. It's a lot of work. I always tell people it's my full-time job, and my side hustle is ESPN. My side gig is ESPN. And I'm committed to both in the same way. I treat them the same, but in terms of time spent, it's more so on the podcasting side.
So when did you start crossing over and taking it far more serious? I know when you started up, you were like, 2015 you did a Yahoo, and you went over to the Ringer, and recently you just started 342 Productions because you're like, shit, I'm working so much. I need to own this IP. Can you go into that and what that was like? And, were you kind of, more so surprised how you're able to help build,
Yeah, I mean, I had made the decision that I wanted to own my own IP and own my own podcast and own my own feed way before the Ringer sold.
Yeah.
And I don't know, was it weeks, months? I can't even tell you, but it was definitely on my mind. And I said this the other day to Zach Lowe, but I knew to build a real podcast, and I knew to monetize that it had to be full-time. It had to be every week. Penn Winston, who's a very close friend of mine, he's a producer. I think he's won like 12 Emmys. He's based out of LA. When I first stopped with Yahoo, he was like, bro, your audience, they need to know when the pod's coming out. You can't leave them hanging. They need to know like every Monday, every Wednesday, whatever it may be, at 7 a.m., there it is on the feed. Mm-hmm. You can't build an audience otherwise. And so I knew that. That was going back to 2016. I knew that. I didn't feel like fully committed to it. And really, and Bill got mad at me on Twitter for whatever reason, but really the moment for me was when we did the Zion pod in January of my last year or my first year with New Orleans right before COVID. We did the Jimmy pod on video. We did the Duncan pod on video. And all of a sudden you saw a different type of reach than you did just on audio. And I said, oh, there's this thing called Zoom. Why didn't we discover this quicker? Seriously. And so during sort of the spring lockdown, we recorded every week. And then we got into a rhythm of like, okay, we can actually do this every week. And we, launching in the bubble was a little difficult just because the schedule in the bubble was crazy. And like, I remember we recorded the Damian Lillard episode the night before it came out, and I had a game, and I was like scrambling to get on the bus. The bus decided they wanted to chill for a bit. Dame's on Zoom with Tommy, like just chopping it up, waiting on me. I'm like running back to my hotel room. Like, not, it's Dame. Like, I'm like, is this guy going to just get off the Zoom? I'm 30 minutes late. So it was challenging to get it done during the bubble, but then you just get in a rhythm and it's fine. But yeah, I think that was kind of the period of time where it was just like the video component, and especially once we'd done all three of those in person, it was like doing these in person, doing the video, it's just better. Mm-hmm. I like it better. I enjoy it more.
And how are you composing, in terms of what are you looking for each player? I know it's something different, but
yeah. Oh, for sure.
What have you sort of unlocked that you feel like differentiates you from everybody else?
I don't know that I'm different than anybody else. I think
You're pretty good at it. You're really good at it.
No, here's what I try to do, and I tried to do this from the beginning, and I think I've gotten better at this. In terms of the comfort level of a guest, I want it to feel like we're having coffee. I had these conversations, the podcast conversations I have all the time with friends at dinner. The three of us, we had it out in the living room at my house when you guys were here in September.
Yeah.
Like you had it on the bus as players. So I want it to feel like that. So that's always the goal. And the other part of it is in terms of the uniqueness of every episode, like I think about the player themselves. So there's specific things to that player you certainly want to talk about. But beyond that, there's things about that player where you can have a conversation that fits into the bigger picture about the NBA, about the athlete experience, about growing up somewhere, about college recruitment, whatever it may be. You know, our conversation where E.T. talked about diminishing his role because he was buying in. Mm-hmm. Like, that was one of the best conversations we've had on the podcast. And it was perfect because it was E.T. And he's candid and he's honest and he's open. Like, so you look for those opportunities, I think, to touch on bigger picture stuff. And specifically when you have a great guest, it works. So maybe that's what I'm good at. I don't know.
Was there any, like, guests or any moments that kind of shocked you? Like, I saw some of the clips from the Porzingis situation, and some of the stuff he was saying, I'm like, damn, he's really keeping it real. Yeah. Like, and it's not even 10 years removed. This shit was like 18 months type remove. Are there any interviews or even a Kyrie situation where you're like, okay, this is going to be big, different pause, like all that type of stuff?
You kind of feel it in the interview, whether or not you think the audience will respond to it, but you can never predict it perfectly. Like, I remember the PJ Tucker story, which was in person, my first year of retirement. PJ, we met him at the Four Seasons downtown, and he talked about this moment his rookie year, right before they went to the playoffs, where they brought him in the office, the coaches, the front office, and they said, PJ, we've had this camera on you at all times, at practice and the arena. I want you to watch this video. And it was him on the bench with bad body language. It was him during timeouts not being with the team. It was him after practice just walking off, not getting extra work in. You can't be an NBA player and do this, PJ. And they cut him 2 weeks later. Yeah. And he talked about that being the moment that turned his career around. And he had to go grind overseas for a few years before he made it back. It's like those moments, like when they happen, you're like, yeah, okay, people are going to respond to this. This is new. This is unique. You try to get that out of every guest. It's damn near impossible to do it every time. But like, that's what the hope is that you give NBA fans specifically, because I bought into just like, this is an NBA podcast. You try to give NBA fans a different perspective than the constant bullshit that happens on television, than the constant bullshit that happens on Twitter. Let's give the real. Let's give the real.
When you talk about give the real, one moment where I think, I always appreciated you was when you stuck up for the NBA players and you versus Mad Dog, Chris Russo. And you were discussing like the undertone of them speaking like a Fox News type term. Dre and always speaking, we're always like, yo, it's either you get it or you don't. So where did like that empathy come from? Where did that situation come from where it gave you bravery to speak up, but like you're also aware? Certain people act like they don't understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I am white. You guys know that.
Yeah.
I'm white. I've almost always been aware of how people talk about athletes, specifically black athletes. It's always bothered me. So I don't, like, what happened on First Take was not unique. Like, I've had that, it just happened to be on live television. Yeah. I've had that conversation with people.
Yeah.
And so it was weird because everything that is, I would say almost everything, but I think everything that has ever went viral on First Take involving me has been my response to something. And it's almost every time been my response to something that wasn't planned. You know, that the Bob Cousy thing, that segment was on Kyrie flipping off the Boston Celtics fans. That's what that segment was on. And I had heard him talking on a previous segment, just killing Chris Paul, just completely diminishing his career and his accolades. And so I just was like, hey, let's address this Chris Paul situation. And he just happened to say Bob Cousy is the greatest point guard of all time. Now, I found about a month later, an old YouTube clip of Mad Dog's top 5 on First Take. And he listed his top 5 point guards ever. And Bob Cousy wasn't on there. So then I realized Mad Dog's just an agitator. Like a lot of this is just for television. It was a good lesson to learn. It was a good lesson to learn.
He's like, man, this kid takes his job too serious.
But you found a knack for the media, whether it's audio, video, live, first take. Like we've seen, I think, some of the best moments with you and Stephen A. And I don't think it's planned. But I know you're saying it's not planned, but what's your energy like naturally going into these basketball conversations? And have they been like this? Like, how long has it been like this? You know, we talk about because the only thing that bothers me a little bit is I can't be as natural as I would like to be because I'm going to offend somebody. Right?
You gotta switch up your hobbies. Like you do what
but
I
here's
do.
The
Don't
thing.
be like, you do it.
Andre, I offend people all the time.
I offended someone for saying they were good at something.
I apparently,
bro, that was
guys.
Bro, that was
I apparently,
wild,
I apparently disrespected, and Dominique Wilkins on multiple podcasts has come after me about this. I apparently disrespected Larry Bird for saying that he was a top 10 player of all time and one of the greatest shooters of all time, but objectively not a top 5 3-point shooter of all time. That apparently is disrespectful. You can't go on those shows and worry about offending someone.
No,
you asked me what my disposition is. Honestly, first time on the show, I had no fucking idea what First Take was. No idea. I didn't pay I paid zero attention to the media. I knew it existed. I played along if I had to do an interview, whatever. Like I didn't pay attention. I didn't know what First Take was. And then I was like, the first day they asked me a question. I gave a wishy-washy answer. Like, this is a debate show. You got to give us something more than that. I was like, oh, it's a debate show? So I go in there. I know the show's meant to entertain. I'm a sick fuck. I'm competitive. I go in there with a combative mindset every time. And Stephen A. and Molly know this. Mad Dog knows this. Like, I go in there, and if we're going to have an actual discussion about something, I'm trying to win. I'm trying to win. And I'm not trying to win saying hot shit just to say hot shit. 90% of what I say is not necessarily an opinion. Yeah. I'm backing it up with facts. I'm backing it up with logic. It's not. So that's how I approach it. It's a competition.
No, where I struggle is you just wear multiple hats. And wearing multiple hats, like the position I'm in now, I'm very cautious of being critical towards players. Like I can't say a guy is good or not.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't say nothing after the other day.
What happened the other day?
I'm just saying with KD when you gave him all the credit. But
oh my God.
You know what I mean? I felt like after the other day, it's like, fuck it. But the only good thing I will say, if like Draymond cursed KD out and he came on his podcast, I think we have a chance for him to show up to our podcast with that compliment.
I have no comment to anything.
What? Why are you playing it safe now, man? Why are you playing it safe now?
Because, like, there is a duty to it. There's a duty to it. Like, I got to do it right. And, like, I got young guys, you know, they have to, like, there is a certain standard to which you have to hold yourself. Now, one thing I won't do is take myself too serious. And I think that happens a lot. Like, people take themselves way too serious in their roles. Now, there are responsibilities. You know, it's like you're the police and you can hang out, but then you become police chief. You kind of have to like do something a little bit different. So it's kind of in that realm. But I guess once I figure out how to tailor it on the other side, like I can talk about the referees or figure out how to be a partner with the league, but at the same time hold the league accountable on things that I think they got wrong, but being respectful about it. It's just it's what you call it, a mind fuck. That's really what it's like.
You have a unique situation if you're going to be talking about the game and players because of your position with the NBPA. I would say I've found it hasn't popped up a lot, but I've found that calling games and doing First Take and doing a podcast, I gotta speak my truth. I gotta speak what I think, what I really believe on these shows or on my podcast, and then I've got to go interview a coach, let's say, before a game. Like that to me is like the hard part where like, you know, like Doc last year, you know, having to talk about like his job security and then go interview him before a playoff game. Like that's weird, you know, or like he had bashed the Clippers. He had done this like random thing towards the Clippers. And I was like, what? And I went on the podcast with Jamal that week and I was like, what? You know, we talked about it. Motherfucker, I had to call a game 3 days later. You know?
Yeah.
So we're in the you know, coaches meeting or whatever with the thing, and it's like, this is awkward.
Right. That makes sense.
Well, speaking of coaching, you remember, I think we spoke this September, you were considering taking a Toronto Raptors job. And you're talking about your personality, disposition, and kind of.
It's funny, man. I think about coaching so much that I have a note on my phone where I write down things as they come to me, and it's not X's and O's because partly I'll explain the X's and O's first. The X's and O's thing to me, and I told Toronto this I'm like, I don't know who's on the team next year. I don't know who's on the team. I'm not gonna tell you the system I'm gonna play. I certainly believe in certain things. Like my teams would probably play mostly drop coverage, but you got to be able to do a bunch of different things in pick and roll, right? My teams would have great spacing. I know that, but outside of that, who are my guys? Who are my role players? Who are my screeners? Like I need to know all this stuff. So X's and O's wise, like I definitely am paying attention. Like I have plays written down, after timeout plays, end of game plays. I use some of that shit with my kids actually because I coach my son's 4th grade travel team. But for me, it's more about like the philosophy and the team building and the relationship building. That is as important to me, and for the reason I want to coach as like the mad scientist X and O's looking up film. Like it's really about the relationship you have with players, with the staff. That is what I miss the most. Being in competition every night, that feeling you get. Like, come on, that's what I miss the most. You know, you can't replicate that. You can't replicate that. That's it for me. Like that to me is like the draw of coaching is just the competition, camaraderie, team building, relationships, leadership, all that stuff.
Well, going back as a player, you played for the Clippers amongst other teams. And I believe in 2013-14, certain people said that was one of the best teams to never win a championship. So when you look back on it, I've heard numerous times of you kind of, you know, having like, I wish we could have had a different way type moment. Is that what makes you want to work on leadership, culture, and kind of coaching in that sense? Because you see the difference between, you know, a little potential and reaching that full potential?
Yeah. I think it wasn't just that team. It was different points in time in your career where you tried, but you weren't necessarily in the right position to problem solve completely. And so, you know, some of that coaching to me is like, coaching is also to me about delegation. Like I played for coaches that, well, I'm going to do every shoot around. Well, how are your assistant coaches getting better?
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to do every film session. Well, how are your assistant coaches getting better? Right? To me, it's about like all this. We're all growing together. How my players getting better, how my coaches getting better, all that stuff.
You play for Tibbs?
Did you play for Tibbs?
You're funny. You're funny. You're funny. The one thing I'll say about the experience with the Clippers is there's no guarantee that we would have won anything. But there is a level of, I think, regret on all of our parts. Whenever I think about that, even the good times, I don't even get nostalgia. I get just like disappointment and sadness because it could have been even better. And it was a great 4 years. Like it was great. It could have been better.
And you had some great players too.
Certain things we addressed or we tried to address, and the interpersonal dynamics of the NBA are the most fascinating thing to me. And I'm not saying as a coach that I would like master that and I would be the best at that. I'm just saying I like doing that stuff. That doesn't scare me. That actually gets me excited. And I used this when I did the interview with Toronto. I It's like so much of the NBA is about conflict, confrontation, and confrontation to me gets this negative rap as a word, right? Confrontation means two people are fighting. No, confrontation to me is about conflict resolution and conflict avoidance. And some players, some coaches are like, I don't want any confrontation. I don't want that. And to me, it like does a disservice. Have you guys ever played with? We were like Dre will probably be in the Hall of Fame, but we were all sort of role players that starred in our roles in different capacities, right? We talked about it on my podcast. Have you ever played with a great player that didn't want to be coached, like in some way?
A whole lot of them.
You did.
The great players that didn't want to be coached.
Didn't want to be coached.
Yeah.
Name them.
I can't.
Okay, but what I was more referring to guys that are actually like established great players versus talent versus talent.
I'm sorry.
But on that point, I think that illustrates to a degree, and I don't know Kedrick, and I don't know the circumstances, and we talk certainly about fit and role when ET and you were on my podcast, but you know, there are certainly intangibles for players beyond just skill for lasting. And we discussed this to a degree, but like, you have to want it for yourself to some degree. You have to be willing to like, I don't want to say bootstrap it a bit, but like, I went to the Valley, dude. Yeah. My first and second year, I was a joke. Yeah. Literally a joke.
And people were happy you were fucking out
I'd be reading articles about some random event, and it'd be like, and this person is about as active as JJ Redick on the bench of the Orlando Magic. I'd be like, what? What do I have to do with that? Yeah. Like, it was funny to people. Hey, this guy doesn't play. Like, I had to be like, oh, why am I not playing? Maybe it's a little bit me. A little bit.
Yeah, but you also
Evan's perspective, by the way, was really helpful for me. Honestly, his perspective, because I mean that. I watched that clip like 3 or 4 times, and the thing you talked about, I think we've all felt to some degree, where you really believe you're doing everything right. You really believe that the work you're putting in, your attitude, the way you're interacting with coaches, sometimes even your play on the court, you think you're doing everything right, and you're not getting more. You're not getting the results, and it's like this feeling of helplessness. And you know, beyond all just those intangibles that I always talk about, like love of the game, competitiveness, willing to work, basketball IQ, like you can have all that stuff, and sometimes still it doesn't work. It's why it's the fucking NBA. There's only so many jobs.
Timing is everything.
There's talented motherfuckers, and like you end up in the wrong situation, and it hurts you. It hurts you. And so like reframing a little bit about like what I talked about in that conversation was control. Like I got to just worry about the things I can control, and believe that ultimately it'll work out. And guess what? You can do that, and sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to. That was helpful for me.
Yeah, but you switched up a bit in that sense as well. I remember hearing about something like your frat boy ways at Duke, but then you kind of changed up your diet and your regimen, and you changed your body up. You used to be like a fat boy, like, you know what I'm saying? And then now
was it fat or frat?
No,
it was
maybe
both.
Frat,
and anytime you wear the tank top under, you fighting something, right?
Your Duke jersey look a lot different on you.
You don't even look like JJ Redick.
Yeah,
like,
you look like a totally different person.
Yeah. What was it like, playing at Duke and playing for Coach K? And you talk about that time of being hated, or, even in Orlando where people were kind of being happy that you weren't playing because of how great you were at Duke. When you first went there, did you realize that, you were going to be embarking on something like that?
I had no idea. No idea. In fact, I remember sophomore year early, and this was really not even at the peak. This was like December break. Everybody's out of school. We're still practicing before we got like 4 days for Christmas before we got back on campus. The rest of the students were still on break. And I called my sisters to campus, and I had dinner with them, and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too hard. And I remember saying, it's like, this is not what I signed up for. It wasn't just hard because people hated me. It was hard because it was a harder basketball. It was a step up.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand. I always worked. I didn't understand really the value of going above and beyond and being diligent and regimented and all that stuff. And I didn't figure it out the rest of my sophomore year either. I mean, it's funny looking back. I was like a vote away from first team All ACC. So I was second team All ACC, third team All American, made the Final Four, leading scorer on the Final Four team. It was the worst I could ever play my sophomore year. The worst. And I was terrible. And I had these series of conversations with coach in April. I went even further down the fucking spiral I was on. They tracked me down in like May 20th or May 21st and took me to Coach K's office. And I was 220 or 225 pounds, depending on how many beers I had the night before.
Golly.
And I played at Duke at 190 my junior and senior year. Like I lost, I think I started my junior year at 192, and I won every conditioning contest. I didn't start really lifting until halfway through my second year in the league when I realized, and again, it was like this self-realization of like, all right, if I want to play at this level, I got to do more. I got to lift more. I got to lift my lower body. I got to do all the agility bullshit. I got to do all the mobility bullshit. Like, and I got to do it every day. And I got to be the best conditioned athlete every single day. And so it was that moment though at Duke, that sophomore year of that meeting, and then they put me on an hourly calendar for the rest of the summer. I still have the sheet.
Yeah, I heard about that.
At my house.
Bro,
I still have the sheet.
He was wilding, G. He trying to be chill.
It was bedtime, wake up time. It was everything, bro. This is when you eat. I had to carry a jug of water around campus.
Oh, wow.
But I was so committed that summer. And then I got first team All-American, National Player of the Year the next year. And then again my senior year. So to me, it was like, it was important. Like we didn't win, which still bothers me. We didn't win a championship when I was at Duke. But it was important for me to see what doing more meant. Right. Like I if you had said to me as an 18-year-old when I walked on campus for summer school, your senior year you're going to average 27 a game and be the National Player of the Year, I'd be like, hell no. There's no way. That's crazy. That's crazy. My jersey's going to be retired. That's crazy.
I never had
your all-time leading scorer at Duke. That's crazy.
I never had a doubt, JJ.
No.
Never had a doubt, Big Dog. Yo, so last thing before you get up out of here.
I got a last thing. Go ahead.
Oh, no, right. I wanted to hear about the coaches. He's been coached by some pretty dope people. So I want to hear some of your favorite coaches. So Coach K, Doc Rivers. Yeah. Fuck, I was Coach Shoot. Van Gundy. Brett Brown, one of my favorite. And then shit, who was that dude? They did you bogus by sending you to Milwaukee. Who was out there?
We had an interim coach.
Yeah, I didn't like that. That didn't make sense. But yeah, but you can rank them.
I feel like maybe not all of them, but I'll tell you who else I played for. Jacques Vaughn. Loved playing for Jacques. And that was his first year as a head coach. He had moved from like fourth assistant in San Antonio and gotten the Orlando job during that first year of the rebuild. Yeah, that was after we traded Dwight. Yeah. I loved playing for Jacques.
He got some haters.
I was with Rick Carlisle briefly in Dallas.
Okay.
Oh. Rick and I was hurt, like injured for the season by the time we got to the playoffs. So I got to like watch him in a playoff series be a tactician. That was fascinating. I thought he was great. So like I've in some ways I feel like I've taken something from every coach I've had. Stan was so detail oriented, and the details. This is not a knock on Stan, but like the details when we were in Orlando and how we played, like they worked then. They worked immaculately then. We had top 5 offense nearly every year. We had top 5 defense. They'd be like, we were great. And they didn't work later on. The game evolved, right? Personnel evolved. He had Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard in his prime was one of the 5 greatest players in the world. Don't at me.
Compare him to Joel Embiid today. Would he have been able to go up against Joel Embiid or
stop it?
No.
That's we're talking.
No, Dwight was different.
So what you saying?
Dwight was different.
I'm saying
Dwight's better.
No.
I'm not saying Dwight's better. I'm saying Dwight.
No, but he was a different player.
A different player. But I'm saying we saw Dwight guard Jokic in the bubble.
Yeah, I mean, Dwight took out Bron too, bro. And Bron's
I'm saying Joel just got a different package to him. I seen him come down and hit somebody with a cross and pull a fadeaway. I was like, oh my God. But I think Dwight would have matched up defensively against him.
In his prime.
In his prime.
In his prime.
I think Dwight could have guarded anybody in his prime. It was amazing to see.
And his pick and roll defense, his hands were so good. Pause.
Yeah. We got cursed out because we were scared to go to the paint.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like he
Just funnel. You just
like you go to the paint,
pressure the ball, and funnel your man to Dwight like he's erasing. He was unbelievable. But Joel's better. Like I don't think that's a hot take. Joel's better.
I agree.
Dwight was incredible in his prime. But I was going to say, so I've taken something different from everybody. I took a lot from Coach K, a lot.
Oh,
but the one thing that sticks out to me about Coach is I was with him for 4 years, and I never saw him have a bad day. That's not to say he didn't make mistakes or there were decisions that he made within a game where you're like, why did he do that? I'm saying he never had a bad day in his approach, in his preparation, in his energy, in the way he talked to us, in his strategy around motivating us. Like, he was on. Do you know what I mean by that? He was on every single day.
I see somebody
and
almost
so no, so like that's how I learned how to be on. Like, I'm on camera. I'm on. I'm with my kids coaching a game. I'm on.
I like it.
I'm at a dinner party and I'm one of the guests that like has to meander about and talk to people. I'm on. Like, you get in the habit of being on and you're on.
Yeah.
Of course, on the court, you have to be on, especially once you get to the league or like you're out of the league. So that environment of just being around that where it's a mental fuck every day of like, I can't come to practice with zero energy. I can't come to, a conditioning run and get 7th place. I'm not doing that. I'm going to be on. And that was from Coach. 100% that was from Coach.
Last question. Take us to your basketball future. Where are we now? Like, we're coming out of an amazing era. LeBron, KD's in year 17. Like, I think we forget. KD can score 30 whenever he wants, and he's in year 17. Steph just had 37 the other night. He missed a 3. He finally didn't make a 3, but he was a couple years in. But we're ushering into a new era. And as older players, because it happened to us a little bit, I'm always conscious of, let me not be too overly critical of the players now. But I think we all can agree on what's missing, like gamesmanship, simplicity. We're just talking to JT about getting to his mid-range at certain points of the game. All the things that Miami are doing, they for some reason, they just keep getting to the conference finals and to the finals. But Jimmy's getting older too. Just give me your thoughts on like where the game is, where it's going, and then how do we keep it on the right track?
Yeah. I believe this. I think in terms of overall talent, the league is as talented as it's ever been. In terms of overall talent. In terms of how that talent is spread out, I think you can make an argument that right now that talent is as spread out as it's ever been. And maybe Phoenix and the Clippers now are like the exception to that. But what we've seen, because the overall talent level is so high, where really good teams have 5 or 6 pieces that fit perfectly. And I'm talking about the Nuggets here. I'm talking about the Celtics here. To a degree, the Miami Heat as well. I don't think the Miami Heat top to bottom are as talented as some teams, but it's cohesive. They got Spo, they got Jimmy, they got Bam. So I think where the league is headed, especially with this second apron coming up, where it's going to be prohibitive for even the Denver Nuggets to keep Michael Porter Jr. around potentially, right? I think the league is in a good place in terms of competitive balance. I believe that. In terms of the gamesmanship, there's enough guys that have that I think the league is in good hands. Giannis has that. Luka has that. Jokic has that. Joel has that. Those guys are all in their 20s still.
And they're foreigners, ironically enough. Now that's unique to name the
there's
top
there-
4 or 5 guys, and when you're adding it up, that was kind of crazy. You name that is crazy. Yeah. It seems like that might be the future.
You know what? I'm naming those guys, and I should have said that too. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Would you agree with me? I think the gripe we have as older players, and maybe every generation has said this, the gripe I would have is, in terms of overall talent, the average player coming in today can do things that I couldn't do when I first got the league, that I don't think the average guy could do when in 95 or 85, just in terms of the ball handling, the shooting range, the footwork. Oh my God. The footwork.
Yeah.
Like really, truly mastering gather steps and step backs and all that stuff.
Slow step.
It's at a high point. But in terms of understanding how to play within a team setting, there's some room for improvement. In terms of where the league is going, it's hard to predict these things because I think the league evolves around the best players. The league always evolves around the best players. I think the league had a reaction to Shaq. I think the league had a reaction to Tim Duncan. The league had a reaction to Kobe. The league had a reaction to Steph. Bron's lived almost all of that, right?
Crazy.
And in some ways, like, teams have like, all right, we're going to go beat LeBron. Like in his prime, it was like, all right, how do we beat LeBron, right?
That is crazy.
I think as a general point, the thing I've thought about lately, because I've heard this a lot too, we're going to go back to like big lineups and we're going to go like the big is back. And I don't agree with that because I think spacing is still going to reign supreme. We can look at the data and say, oh, offenses are harder to guard than ever. Why would we play 2 non-shooting bigs? You can't play 2 non-shooting bigs. So my big take right now, it's not a big take, but my sort of general take on where we're headed is that the thing that is going to be valuable as each generation moves on of more skill, is going to be coaching. I think will be an edge. And I think positional size, not just size, meaning this. It's like positional size. It's what makes Luka so good. It's what makes Jason Tatum so good.
Well,
like
OKC
they have positional size.
OKC is loaded with positional size for the most part.
I agree.
It's wild. It's wild to think how close they are right now.
Yeah.
2 years ago, they had the worst offensive rating in the NBA.
Yep.
In 22.
Yeah.
The worst offensive rating.
And all those kids are like 25 years old or something.
It's
and they're
wild.
6'7", 6'8". And you look at the numbers and you're like, God damn, like Lou Dort is supposed to be their worst guy. He's balling.
Yeah,
and everybody's getting 40 over there. It's tough. That'll be good.
Well,
Dre, I got one question for you.
Shoot.
I got one question because this is you got me thinking now, and this relates to just the Warriors. Because I think another part that has existed for a long time in the NBA, but I think it's even more important now with the way that defenses switch, is just the importance of 2 players whose skill sets and size are a little bit different. Because that's kind of how you create advantages.
Yep.
And so on the Warriors, as much movement and ball movement as you had, like I always felt like Steph was such a gravity pull for the defense that you guys maybe didn't need to. Him and Draymond have a 2-man game. Don't get me wrong, but in the traditional sense of like we're going to walk it down, is 3 minutes to go, and we're going to put Stockton and Malone in a pick and roll. Like it didn't always seem like you guys necessarily needed to do that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's very accurate because, like you said, it's the gravity pull. And Steve Kerr was really good at that. He knew where the gravity was. And so he can construct a play where, I got Steph coming one way, either with a pick and roll or a handoff, or I'm handling, he's coming off a screen.
Right, the off-ball screen and you get a slip, right?
You get a slip every single time. Every single time you get a slip. How many lobs I threw Bogut? I threw some bad lobs at him, but they were just like, I just couldn't believe he was so open, and I didn't see him. Like, wait, somebody's open. Oh, it's Bogut, and just throwing it somewhere into the basket. But it was always that gravitational pull. And then you had Clay coming off the backside if you put him in the pick and roll. And so it was just like, you really did. And then it was kind of Well, like people forget we had Kareem Rush, Brandon Rush, before his knee injury, was going to be the leading scorer for the Warriors, like Steph's rookie second year. People forget that.
Yeah.
And so we had him, or we had a Barbosa, or like we had another guy that can at least either attack the basket or shoot it. And so you couldn't leave that guy. And so naturally it ends up Draymond and myself on a 2-on-1.
Right.
And
all that 4-on-3, 2-on-1 on the backside.
2-on-1 on the backside was just all day. I mean, you go to Game 5 versus Cleveland, 2017 finals. I think I had 20-something points, and everything was just backside. Either I got a dunk or got a butt-naked three on the wing or on the break.
Yeah, the break.
The break. Someplace we call it Tiggy. Excuse my language. The break of the three. But that's all it was. It was like you couldn't leave KD, you couldn't leave Clay. And then Steph was just doing Steph. So I'm just 2-on-1 all day. But a lot of it was knowing where to be when Steph's coming off the pick and roll, because a lot of times it wasn't set up. And I used to always tell the rookies, like, just be on the same side as Steph, no matter what. So if you're the low man, a dunker, if you're the low man, I knew whichever side Steph was on, start on that side. And when he came off, come off to the same side with him. I'm just tracking Steph because the gravity's going to pull with him. Draymond's going to come on the opposite side. Now my man's diagonal to Draymond. If I'm same side, he can guard both of us. I always knew to be at diagonal with Draymond, and they were dead. It was one play. I remember Steph kept flipping the screen, and I kept having to run, trying to position, and I was so tired coming out of that, but Draymond threw the lob, and I caught the dunk. And people were like, what the hell were you doing down there? I'm like, I'm just positioning my man to make an X to get to Draymond, so it's a lob over the top, as opposed to same side. It's impossible pass.
I made a comment. I think it was the Spurs game in the fourth quarter, the day after Thanksgiving. I was doing the game, and in the second half, I think it was late. They doubled Steph on a pick and roll. He hit the short roll, back-to-back lobs for dunks out of that corner, right? Because it's a 4-on-3, and so that X-Man is dead. Like, he's dead, right? Dead. And I said, the Warriors do this in their sleep. Like, if I would like somebody to put together a montage highlight of every back cut out of the corner after Steph is doubled on the pick and roll. Right. Guys, don't throw me under the bus with anything.
No, we won't, bro.
I got to protect my damn self.
JJ, you damn near on Tony Hawk level to black people, bro.
Ooh, that's a
so if something happened to you, Black Twitter would be upset, man. So you keep trucking the right way, all right?
All right, I will, man.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys.
Yes,
Appreciate you guys.
Enjoy the